what have you done just from a spiritual standpoint, maybe guardrails you've put around your life to protect you from temptation? We're all faced with temptation from time to time, but what have you done? What have you put around your life to be able to resist that?
I've seen marriages crumble because of a man interested in another woman. You don't allow yourself to be in that position. I mean, I go home to my family every night, and I'm happy to be home with my family every night.
Well, I think we talk about, again, not our church necessarily, but the church in general talks a lot about sin. A lot of times we don't talk about not taking care of your body is sinful.
I think it's important for you to have a healthy life and have a healthy life in what you believe, and that's the Bible and understanding what it says.
Welcome to Finish Strong. Today I'm honored to have Ronnie Schwartz join us. Ronnie is an absolute fixture in Central Louisiana. Ronnie's impact on our community is absolutely immeasurable. Ronnie's been a personal trainer for the past 20 years, and for the past 5 of those years, he's been the general manager of Louisiana Athletic Club. They have locations here in Pineville and in Alexandria. He's been married to Robin for the past 29 years. Robin, by the way, is the co-owner of Little Cakes here in Alexandria and Pineville. They have 2 beautiful daughters, and they have 1 son-in-law that just got added to the mix here recently. But as much as an impact that he's had on his personal training clients, it's his charitable work that really helps Ronnie stand out. Ronnie started an organization called Sinla Runners 10 years ago. However, it didn't take Ronnie long to realize that running was secondary. The primary focus of this organization is to raise money for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. So in the past 10 years, his team has raised almost $2 million for St. Jude. Incredible. And for the past 8 years, they've been in the top 5 of the St. Jude fundraising teams in the United States. And 4 of those years, they've been the top fundraiser. But as you will hear, what is most important to Ronnie is his faith in Jesus. He's been a member of Calvary here for the past 32 years. So when you hear Ronnie's story, you may think this guy just has it made. He's just cruising through life. Well, just like everyone, he's had his ups and downs. He has his bumps along the way. But it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And Ronnie definitely has a plan for finishing strong. Ronnie Schwartz, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Oh, man, great to have you, Ronnie. And as I've said with several guests, I knew from the very beginning when we started this that I wanted to interview you at some point. So we finally made it happen, and so thank you.
I've really enjoyed watching your podcast.
Well, thank you, man. And so this one's personal for me just because we've known each other for so long. We've known each other for over 25 years.
Correct.
And so when I think about our relationship, even though we don't talk near as often as we used to, kind of busyness of life and all those sort of things, but man, your impact on me is just immeasurable. Your impact on Central Louisiana. So I go all the way back to when we moved to Alexandria from Baton Rouge. It's been 30 years ago, or almost 30 years ago now, and me, you, and David Gio got together. I remember we got together with Gene Ortiz, and Gene said, we need a men's group. And so we had started a little men's group with another we were trying to get another physician in with us. He never did. David Gio reminded me of that story here recently, but he didn't kind of work out getting with us. But we just started a little men's group here at Calvary. It was over 25 years ago, and it was on Wednesday nights.
Correct.
And we started going through the New Believer's Bible. And so the 3 of us, and that group grew and grew and grew, and split into some other groups and other groups, and that multiplied. And so really in a lot of ways, the men's ministry here at Calvary started with us 3 starting that little men's small group. So I'll never forget that, Ronnie.
It was fun. It really was.
Yes.
We knew we were going to be on Wednesday nights for sure.
Absolutely. And it's just amazing to think about the guys that were in that group originally and where they are today and what God's done. So just so thankful for your friendships. Our girls have grown up together and our families have grown up together all these years. So just amazing. But Ronnie, man, just let's start from the beginning. Okay. You grew up here in Central Louisiana, right? So you moved here as a young man. So tell us kind of how about your growing up years, how you ended up in Central Louisiana, kind of what that looked like.
Well, it all started, actually, a lot of people don't know this. Actually, I was born in Fort Worth, Texas. That's where my mother, who is from Clucheville, met my father working at a phone company. They met each other, had a date or two, and we ended up getting married. A lot of people don't realize that I was raised where I was born, and I was a Jew, okay? So during the time we lived in Fort Worth, Texas, that's what we practiced, the Jewish faith. My father was in the retail business and also was the president of Gashman Metals, which was something a lot of Jewish families are involved with, retail. And so after an accident with my father, I was about 6 years old. My father was killed on a job site. My mother felt like moving back home to Central Louisiana was the right thing to do with two boys. So my mother, we sold our house. We had family still back in Fort Worth. We moved to Central Louisiana to be close to her because, as I said, she's from Clutcheville, but she was raised in Pineville and Tioga area.
Yeah.
And my mother actually was a Catholic, but she converted to the Jewish faith. So we were brought up as young kids in the Jewish faith. And the synagogue that we were part of was very similar to what Calvary as far as size. So when we moved to Central Louisiana, going to the temple here, it was night and day for what we're used to. So we came here and we put our feet down and never stopped.
Wow. So tell us about, what was your conversion like to Christianity from being raised Jewish and all that? So what did that look like in your life?
Well, as a 6-year-old, I knew what it was like. We had Sunday school, we went to the temple, but I never really was dived into it like my brother did. My brother was one of the first bat mitzvahs here in Central Louisiana. And we were involved in as much as my mother wanted to keep us in the Jewish faith. And it just wasn't interesting enough for me to stay in there. The Sunday school class was maybe 3 or 4 people, never really close with them. And being here in Central Louisiana, a lot of good Christian people. And in high school, I was around all these people. And, it took an invite for me to get started to, and it was to Calvary, back at the old Calvary. And I got to give credit to probably Lane and Lynn Sanders because they're the ones that, held the hand out and said, why don't you come with us? And that's where my Christian faith started because I had to learn what it was all about.
Yes. So, and then we talk a lot about on this podcast, the power of a personal invitation. One person asking another. There's nothing like somebody inviting someone else.
And I remember playing RA basketball. And, you get in the middle of the basketball court and you've got to say the RA pledge. And I remember Craig Pierce, because we all played together in basketball, he would look at me. I didn't know it, but, Jim Montgomery wanted us to know it, and I just didn't know it. But I'd move my lips as if I did. But it was a start for me because I continued to go to some type of church, and it was Calvary. And my mother wasn't really excited about it because she wanted to continue the raising their kids as Jewish men. And so, the funny thing about all this is my brother was more involved in it me, but he's a Christian now. He is very involved in a church, and his life has changed totally since he became a Christian.
Wow. So who were some of those influences? So absence of your dad, right, growing up. So we talk a lot about, the father wound and guys that are kind of deal with either not having a father around or not a good experience with their father. So who were some of those maybe men that poured into your life in those growing up years that maybe had an influence on you?
Like I said, the Sanders had a lot to do with getting me in the door. Somebody that is very special to me to this day is Gene Ortiz. There was a time in my life where things were not great, and I wanted to know more about what the Bible is. I didn't know where to start. And meeting with Gene on several occasions he's the type of person, there's nothing to dislike about him. He has so much energy. Until this day, when we come in church, he grabs my kids and hugs their neck. Because a lot of people also don't know is that my family did not start by saying I do. My wife became pregnant. Her family was very Christian, very involved in a church. And so we actually didn't have her parents show up at our wedding because they were totally against it. But Gene told me, and to this day I remember it, when I met with him to tell him that my wife was pregnant, I remember him telling me, he goes, son, you go to Patton's, you get a ring, you love her? I said, yes, I do. He goes, you tell her you want to marry her. And it wasn't the best proposal in the world, sitting on a bed saying, Robin, I love you. I want to marry you.
Yeah.
I want to spend the rest of my life with you. But he stood behind us, and he could tell you there were some war stories during the whole process with her father, who eventually turned around to me one day after I think it was an Easter church service at their church, and he said, "I just want to apologize to you. I made a mistake by judging you, marrying my daughter." And I understand that. I probably feel the same way if it happened to my daughters.
Yeah.
But it was a process. I made a mistake, but 29 years later,
Yes.
I'm still married.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and probably know the statistic, the odds of those young marriages, getting married like that are not good.
No.
And so obviously, what's helped you along the way as far as?
There was another one involved, and that was Dr. Brunet. I remember at his camp one year, I just said, tell me about the Bible. Where do I start? Because I knew that the man was awesome, because I remember when he was the doctor for Tulane, didn't matter where he was following the football team, he would fly back just to teach a Sunday school class. And he took that time that weekend just to give me some eyes on what to look for and how to do it. And it's a work in progress.
Yeah.
I'm 65 years old, and still it's a work in progress.
Yes.
It doesn't change overnight.
Yes, absolutely. Wow, incredible. I mean, you talk about Gene, you talk about the Sanders, you talked about Dr. Brunet. I mean, just the men that pour in our life, and even women on this, on listening to this, women pouring in their life. I mean, there's nothing to replace people pouring into our life and investing in others. So.
And it goes to you and David Gio and the men's group, because you got to have some accountability in the whole idea. I'm not as involved as I was before, but the guys that I saw that came through the Bible study have always asked, we need to do this again.
Yes.
And because, our lives have changed. This has been years since we've done it.
Yes.
But, it's important to be around people that you want to be around and that are like you.
Yes, absolutely. When I know sports was a big part of your life growing up, right? So you graduated from Bolton,
Sure did.
played football at Bolton and
Yes.
all that. And so tell us about that sports career. So.
It's just, and I go back to in my faith when I was Jewish. The rabbi, we would meet on Saturday mornings for our group for the high school kids, and I played football on Friday night, so getting up the next morning at 7 o'clock, being at the temple to meet was very hard. And I remember him telling me, you got to make a choice. Your choice is either going to be your faith or athletics. And so that was another thing that pushed me away from it. None of the guys I was in class with or girls were involved in sports. And that's what I wanted to do, and I wanted to play it. You can do both.
Yes.
I mean, God's there with you no matter what, and He's not going to look at you any worse if you do it.
Yes.
But it pushed me further away, and I see people all the time that I was involved with through the temple here in town, and they said, you could always come back. And that's not part of it.
Yes. Well, I know that was real important. And matter of fact, that's really where I first met you. I was playing football at Ash, and I would see you come over work out over at Ash.
Oh, yeah.
And you were out of school and all that stuff. That's actually when I first met you. I don't know if you remember that, but we connected years later.
Oh, wow.
Years later on a personal level. But so let's talk about the personal training. So obviously you've been a personal trainer in Central Louisiana for as long as I can remember. What drew you to personal training? Did you always want to be involved in some sort of training aspect from that sports, or how did that come to be?
I can honestly say that there was a time in my life I had no idea what I wanted to do, and I've always worked out. I've always been part of a gym somewhere, and I ran into a friend of mine. Well, I made friends with a guy named Don Fields. Don Fields is known throughout this town for what he does with student athletes and all this. And that was a point in my life where, man, I don't know what I'm going to do. I was in the car business. I did all kind of stuff. I even worked at Kaplan's Men's Store back when I was younger. But he said, why don't you come over and see what I have? And so I had the opportunity, went there, and that's where the personal training got involved. It's good to be able to create something that you come up with and work with people, because I don't care what school you go to, what certification you get, it doesn't mean you're going to know exactly what to do. I see kids all the time.
Yeah.
They all want to be trainers, but they want the money, but they don't want to put the time in.
Yeah,
and it was
training.
it was a perfect opportunity for me because he helped me build a client base. I spent 9 years there before I made the move to where I am now.
Okay. So you've been at it almost 30 years then, right?
It's been a long time.
Yes. So, and I see a pattern here. There are guys all along the way that mentored you along the way in your faith, in the personal training, and all those steps along the way.
And Don was a very strong faith man.
Yes.
He lost a child. I went through that whole process with him, and he continues. And I wouldn't say that we're as close as we were before, but I know where he stands and what he does and how he lives his life.
Yes. So let's talk about the personal training. So do you see, obviously you're building relationships with your personal training clients. So you're probably hearing the deep, dark secrets of everybody's lives and you're getting involved in their lives. But so let's talk about that. How have you kind of integrated your faith into what you do and from a personal training perspective?
Well, first of all, you got to be a great listener because everybody that walks that door has a story. And sometimes the stories are great and sometimes they're sad. In most cases, you get to know that person. I'll be honest with you, probably 90% of my clients always were females. And you listen to what they say. They have struggles, and there are some very strong Christian faith women out there. Yeah. But, I knew where I stood as far as my faith, and anywhere I can say what I needed to say at the right time, I was there. And would always direct them in the right way. I always say, you got to have faith, you got to believe in God, and you got to believe what the Bible says.
Yeah.
And, you build that relationship. Sometimes you push them away because I've worked out people that were Jehovah's Witness, Mormon, and how far you can go with that. Yeah. I had a lady one time that was Jehovah's Witness in town, and there was a lady that came to the gym, and she was involved in a terrible accident. She knew that she should have been killed. And her comment to me was, and they're very involved with church camps and all that, she goes, God saved me in this wreck. And he goes, I know I felt his presence. And she was really, if you'd seen the car, you'd thought, how did she live? And her faith is that God pushed her through this, and her husband also. So when I mentioned this to the person of another faith, they said, how does she know that God was with her? And I really couldn't come up with the answer for the fact that she was saved, she was not scratched, and in an accident probably would have killed her. But she knew that was why she's here today.
Interesting, and you can integrate what you know about your faith into that conversation.
Yeah, and there's always opportunities for you, whether it's in training. In our club, we have a lot of Christians been on a Christian campus.
Yes.
And a lot of people will not speak their faith, but it's very easy to see when somebody's hurting. We had a lady recently lost her son-in-law, and a quick hug and say, I'm praying for you, goes a long ways.
Yes, absolutely. It's the actions, and a lot of times it's not the words, right?
Exactly.
So, and that's who you are, Ronnie. I know it's who you are. You're there for people, and you're going to give that hug and that encouraging word to them when they need it. And so, we don't have to always break out a Bible to demonstrate God's love to someone.
No.
And I know that's who you are. And so let's talk about just physical training in general. So, the church, and I'm not necessarily talking about Calvary or any specific church, but I don't personally think the church does a good job of really talking enough about, the temple of God. Our body is God's temple.
Yes.
And so taking care of that temple, I think we talk about, again, not our church necessarily, but the church in general talks a lot about sin. But a lot of times we don't talk about not taking care of your body is sinful because this is a body given by God. So speak to that a little bit and where you see people. Do you see people in general taking care of their bodies or not taking care of their bodies?
In most cases, yes. I've always liked you treat your body like you do the temple, and your body is a temple.
Yeah.
And taking care of yourself, because there's I don't think there's a week that goes by where I don't hear about somebody that's passed away or somebody in the hospital. And could anything be done from my standpoint or anybody else's? But I think it's important for you to have a healthy life and have a healthy life in what you believe, and that's the Bible and understanding what it says. People these days, you have your muscle heads, but I've seen a lot of them that are strong faith people. You know, the guy with the tattoo, there was one time there was a guy had a big tattoo on the back of him, and everybody was scared to death of him, and nobody would really speak to him. And so one day he happened to be down in the lobby, and I said, "Tell me about your tattoo." He goes, "Man, I love Jesus. I love Jesus." I said, "It's very obvious," because he had a cross on his leg too. And he said, "I will talk about it all day long." But everybody was scared to say anything to him because he was this big, bowed-up guy.
Yes.
And he had a voice that just did not match his body.
Yes.
But I knew exactly where his heart was.
Exactly. When you see people from all different levels, so do you see people that maybe spend too much time on their body and maybe make their health and fitness a guide in their life versus other things over family, over faith, that sort of thing? You see any of that?
I can't really say that I do, because I'm not saying that I don't associate or involved in that. You know, there are a lot of people that care more about weightlifting than they do anything else. And I'm not going to second guess and say that they're not Christians, but just their actions show it.
Yeah.
And you know, there's ways to work with that. I mean, you know, it's amazing at the athletic club how many people that go there are from Calvary. We have ladies that take tap that are in the choir. I see them every Sunday, and they'll come downstairs and they said, "Did you hear what he preached yesterday?" Or, of course, you go, "How'd you like our song?" So, you know, you got to know who you can talk to and who you can't.
Yes.
And there are people more in love with themselves than anything else.
Yes, in anything. You know, I'm in the running community and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like running triathlons, all that can become
yeah.
your focus and your guide.
It is.
Anything, obviously, food or athletics, anything can come.
But you know, the cool thing about it is every race that we've done in marathons, half marathons, we always pray.
Yes,
and that's very important, because
Yes,
you don't know. I mean, there's people who have dropped dead on race courses.
Yes.
And you know, you just hope that they had that relationship with God.
Yes.
But we do, and it's funny because even when we used to cycle, they would always say, "Ronnie, we can't leave here until you pray." And it gives them some security, whether nobody else wants to pray or not. I always follow my wife if I want her to pray.
Yes.
But it's something you do no matter what. Even when we're in Memphis every year, we try to pray before we even leave the gate.
Yes. And you know, we talk a lot about everybody's in ministry. You know, everybody's a pastor, everybody's a ministry of some sort. You know, you may not be a paid pastor, but I would put you in that category of you're able to minister to so many people. I mean, whether you know it or not, just by you saying a prayer.
Yeah.
You know, when people have an issue, they're going to come to Ronnie Schwartz because they know this is a praying guy.
Yeah.
And Robin's a prayer, and just your impact on those groups is just immeasurable. So, so let's talk about that group. So you started Sinline Runners 10 years ago. You and I were running half marathons together, and we did a marathon in Austin, I think, one time many years ago.
I do remember that one.
That was a hot one in the hills and all that stuff.
Weren't expecting it.
So let's talk about Sinline Runners. You know, it started out as an organization. Remember, in its infancy, it was all about just getting the running community together, and now it's absolutely exploded into this huge fundraising. So let's talk about its infancy and kind of where it's come.
Okay, we like you said, we started 10 years ago. I basically, it started from doing run groups because a lot of people wanted to. Back then, we had 5Ks almost every weekend. And so just getting people moving in the right direction, whether it's walking or running, we always started at Ash. We'd move from there. After a certain amount of time, we'd go to the streets. And then, you know, we found events that we could do. You know, Austin, Houston, all these races we were doing. And so one year, we probably took the largest group we've ever taken to St. Jude. And it's actually been 14 years I've been involved with that event. We took 120-something people there, and we were just running the event. And, you know, you run through the campus, you see those kids sitting on the side, you know, thanking you, and the parents thanking you, and, you know, I'm a survivor. And it took, the sad part, it took me 4 years to realize, why are we going here every year? And it's always the first weekend of December. So there were things that we missed. We missed the Christmas programs here at the church. You know, it was that time of year when the stores were busy. So my family has been so giving to me for allowing me to take that weekend for the past 14 years and go. So we, you know, I said, who are these people with these hero shirts on? And there were and I never really knew what it was. I don't like to be called a hero, because I don't do it to be a hero. But we saw that there were groups that were raising money for St. Jude, and I wanted to be involved with it. And so we started out, it's who all wants to go and who would like to join. And so the hero is a fundraising part of the race where you commit to a certain level of raising money. And, the first year we did it, I think we raised $34,000. We were fine with that. Then as we went on, we continued to grow that amount. I think Lynn Rollins used to always say, small town Louisiana, Alexandria. That's what we did. But we live in such a community that is giving. There's a lot of great nonprofits. We did it for several years without being a nonprofit. But then we felt like that if we created the nonprofit, which we did during COVID, that it would be a lot easier for people to give knowing that they can use it as a tax write-off.
Yes.
And so that wasn't important. So we kicked the ground and we ran with it, and we built the team. I wouldn't say we never had that 120, but we always had a good group. And so, we got to 100,000, and then we got to 150,000, and then, several years later we hit $1 million, and that was impressive. And I always said that my goal was to raise $2 million, and it's not about the awards. The awards all go towards our team because it takes a team. And so last year we did 230,000. We've done 280,000.
Amazing.
But then last year after the event, I wanted to see where we were because I always said 2 million is where we want to be. And so we're actually $190,000 from it, and we'll hit it this year.
Yeah.
But it's you just got to see what the campus is all about, what it was 14 years ago, whereas now there are so many kids from Louisiana that attend that hospital. There's never a day that goes by that somebody will thank me or tell me a story. And just in central Louisiana, there's 43 kids either getting care right now or being treated for something.
Wow.
So that means a lot. Louisiana ranks in the top 3 states in the United States of children going to the hospital. Now,
Amazing.
a lot of people say a lot of this is from Lake Charles, Lafayette, and they say it could be the chemicals and all this. I don't know. I don't care. But, there's several families on our team that have St. Jude kids. And I've seen them, little to where they're growing up. They don't care about the team anymore.
Yeah.
They're too embarrassed. But, we're involved with a lot of events in Central Louisiana. And every event has been strong for us.
Wow.
And there's no stopping us.
Wow. Wow. And Ronnie, like our good friend David Brooks always said, everything rises and falls on leadership. And so even though you're not taking the credit, I know it takes a team.
It does.
If it wasn't for the vision of Ronnie Schwartz and you keeping this thing going, there wouldn't be $2 million, almost $2 million donated to St. Jude's.
No.
And so I want to give you a huge kudos. And I know it takes a team.
It does.
But I know as long as you have breath, you're probably going to continue to do this, right? I mean, you're in the long haul, right?
As long as my family, they've participated in every event. There's been times where both my girls have gone. There's been times where it's just one. We always have it's a family thing. And they both know, even my one that just got married, Cara Grace, they're raising money now. And her husband is raising money now. And so it becomes a trip. We enjoy it. It's we go down on a Thursday, we come back on Sunday, and then we relax, and then we kick it back off for the next year.
Wow. Well, tell us about St. Jude's. For somebody that doesn't know out there, they know it's a children's research hospital. But tell them how all the money works, and if you're a patient at St. Jude, kind of tell people how that works.
Well, there are a lot of teams in Louisiana, and they have this Gulf Coast region, which we're a part of. And I've got very good friends that have teams in Lafayette, New Iberia. The money filters straight to the hospital. As a patient, there's nothing undone for them. If you lived in Alaska and you need to be at that hospital, they're going to pay for the flight for you to Alaska there. We've been in the airport before for a meeting that I went to, and there was a young kid from Croatia with his family, could not speak a bit of English, but we knew that child was there and had been treated. They supply everything. Some of the world's best doctors share their stories and the cares for cancer or the experiments, things they've done are shared there, and they're from all over the world. So these kids go there to be treated, and they pay for the meals. They put them up in housing if they need it. They pay for the gas to go down there. And nowadays, in this time, you got two parents working. It's very hard for one to leave a job or both leave a job to go there. So usually the case is that there's always a parent there or there are two parents. There's a gentleman that's out of Baton Rouge, I believe it is. He's with the Louisiana Dealers Association. He found out that his either I think it was 2-year-old or 3-year-old had cancer and had been through the Children's Hospital. They knew that the child had a form of cancer they need to get to St. Jude. And I got the call from a friend saying, what can you do? It takes a doctor to get them admitted there. I wish there was some way that I could do it, but you can give them direction, and then within 24 hours, that child was at St. Jude. And the father's making trips back and forth. Yeah. But it's unbelievable, that place. Just to run through the campus is enough to inspire you to continue to do it. To walk through the hospital and see the kids being transported from one doctor's office to another doctor's in a little red wagon with an IV pole and an IV. That could be my child. I don't have a kid in the game at all. But it's enough to make you realize that if you're going to do something that's going to help other people.
Absolutely, right.
And that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. And it doesn't matter economic background, right? To the poorest, to the wealthiest, they're not paying a dime when they go to St. Jude.
No,
right?
And it costs a lot of money day to day.
Yes. Yeah.
But, there's this year is the 25th year of this race and fundraising. And, last year was $14.5 million need to be raised, and that's the goal they set. They surpassed it. We have in Louisiana, we have 2 hospitals that have clinics for St. Jude patients. So if you have a child that's on chemo and they get sent home, they can go to this hospital in Baton Rouge and receive the treatment. Okay. And that's something new, but you don't find that in every city. You find that in cities that have a lot of kids going to the hospital. There's one in Shreveport, a clinic there. But it's hard to believe what the Baton Rouge sees as far as patients. There's one of the parents has a child on team. It saved their jobs because all they had to do was get in a car and drive 2 hours to Baton Rouge. Yes. And then if they had to stay overnight, they were furnished a place to stay, but they can be back home. Yes. And so, you want to be at home.
Yes, absolutely.
But then there's places where there's the McDonald House. There's other buildings that are where they house them for more than a week, 3 days. Some people are there for 6 months. Some people are there for a year.
Amazing. So do you credit your faith with your passion to help these kids? I mean, is that integrated with your faith and who you are as a man?
It is, because, not every child survives. To talk to a parent that lost a child and say that St. Jude gave them 7 years with their child means a lot. If it wouldn't have been for St. Jude, they wouldn't have had their child for 7 years. The hospital is very faith-based. I mean, they have I want to call it a church, but they have one where every faith is practiced. Whether it's Jehovah's Witness, Muslim, they have it. They don't turn anybody away because of faith. But knowing where your heart is and how your beliefs are allows you to work with them, because believe me, they know that God is in control and God's going to make all the right decisions, whether it's a child that doesn't make it or not. And see a lot of stories that don't make it. Yes. But the parents know that they did everything they could.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Ronnie, man, just your fundraising efforts, your passion for this impact is immeasurable. I mean, it's immeasurable. The people you impacted, the people that you've encouraged to give to this. So how would somebody get involved? Like, if they hear this today and it's like, man, I'd like to get involved with this. What are some ways they can get involved?
Well, I mean, they can contact me. If they want somebody to talk, they can contact me at the Louisiana Athletic Club. Yeah. We do have a Facebook page that we deal with, and it's called St. Runners Heroes. They can message me. It's not a hard conversation, I promise you, and I don't think there's a day that goes by that I'm not talking about it. I was walking out of the gym this afternoon to come over here, and there's a gentleman that comes in. He has no family, and he walked up to the counter and he said, "Do y'all know Ronnie Schwartz?" And the little girl who's new working for us said, well, yeah, he's my boss. And she goes, no, do you know Ronnie Schwartz? And he says, that man raises a lot of money for St. Jude. And I looked at her, I said, oh, I don't raise that much money. I said, I got a team that raises a lot of money. But, you know, we had a member of the gym that lost a daughter probably a year ago. I had no idea that their child was a St. Jude patient. And I found out after it happened. And the gentleman came to me, and some friends came to me and said, do you know he lost a daughter? And I said, no, I didn't know it. I don't get a list of who's all in the hospital. But he goes, I want to do whatever I can for it. He goes, I want to do whatever I can. She was my stepdaughter. I loved her to death. He goes, but whatever you need or event you want me to be at, I'll be there.
Amazing.
So the stories are there. You just got to. They're going to find you.
Exactly.
You don't have to find them.
Exactly. Well, and you're a man in demand. I mean, you obviously is a fundraising machine. So I'm sure you get asked to do different things. So how do you? And I've asked a lot of guests this. So how do you learn to say no? And I'm probably asking this for myself to be able to filter things and say, okay, I know my mission. I know what God's got me on this earth to do. Has been ministry. That's what He's called me to do, and obviously raise my family but men's ministry. But this is your passion. So how have you learned to filter out like a lot of good things you could be doing, but to stay focused on what this mission is?
You know, there's not a lot that I do. You know, I volunteer at every race I can. My buddy Lawson Fall, helping him time, whether it's, you know, Red River Run or the Spirits Race, I work them all. My wife will tell you for me to say no is very hard. You know, you could spread yourself out, but, you know, I think it's important that in what I do as far as, you know, raising money for St. Jude, I don't go to these events to raise money. I go there, and I've always told runners this. I said, you know, we're supporting St. Jude, but it's very important for you to support all these events here. I'm not asking you to run every event because it gets costly, but you know, I think it's important to be involved, whether it's a race or it's something else involved. We try to get our people to do other events. I can't be at everything, and it's, you know, they see what it is, and no is not really in my vocabulary.
Me either. That's a difficult thing, but you get yourself spread too thin.
It is, but you know, it doesn't take away from my family. You know, I have a good friendship base, and most of them are tied to something, whether it's cycling. Like if I want to go cycle on Saturdays, my wife will go into work. If it's a day that I have off, I do it, but I come home. I know what's more important. It's my family. You know, raising two girls, that's probably the hardest thing I've ever had in my life, because you know, for years my wife was a pharmaceutical rep, and when she was gone, I was daddy. I mean, I remember going to Calvary Daycare and saying, "Here's the brush, and here's the little tie. Can you put her hair up?" But
I remember those days.
And you know, it was painful, and I laughed and they laughed. But you know, I never put my family in front of anything unless they're going to be a part of it.
So let's talk about family and faith. And so, you know, we're all as men, you know, there's a big target on our back. You know, we have an enemy called the devil that wants to take us away from our relationship with God. He wants to distract us at every turn. We got a big target on us. And so what are some things you've done over the years? I mean, you've been married for 29 years. You've got a great family, great daughters, one son-in-law so far. And so what have you done just from a spiritual standpoint, maybe guardrails you've put around your life to protect you from temptation? You know, we're all faced with temptation from time to time, but what have you done? What have you put around your life to be able to resist that?
So the joke is, I told my wife years ago that's what I do. I work with probably 95% women. And I told her, I said, Robin, I hear stories all day long. I hear good stories and I hear sad stories. My interest is strictly in my family. And don't ever accuse me of any kind of affair or any cheating going on, because I listen to it all day long. You know, at one time with kids I was working out, because the kids would talk to me before they'd talk to the parents. And the one thing I didn't like about it is because after they got the kid home, they were calling me on the phone saying, "Did they say anything about this?" You know, I've seen marriages crumble because of a man interested in another woman. You don't allow yourself to be in that position. I mean, I go home to my family every night, and I'm happy to be home to my family every night. You know, and I've got friends. We'll go out, eat dinner together, and they'll bring their kids. You know, and just no interest in me in anything outside of that.
Yes.
I've seen too many friends just totally shocked of divorce.
Yes.
And I don't want to play a part in it.
Yes. So you decided that at an early age, right?
Oh, yeah.
That just it was not an option, right?
It's not.
Yes.
And, you know, I've had friends that I've talked to about and that are going through the same process. And you never know what's going on behind the closed doors. But in most cases, it's infidelity by one or the other.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's tough to handle.
Oh, yeah.
Especially
Yeah.
when there's kids involved.
Yeah. Well, the new buzzword in the Christian circle seems to be, oh, I just struggle with this. I struggle with lust, or I struggle with this, or I struggle. It's like, it's not really a struggle. It's really a choice,
Yeah.
right?
You're right. You're exactly
it's
right.
really choosing. And you chose at an early age, you know, those 25, 30 years ago, we started getting together. You made that choice. Like, I'm not going down that road. And maybe it's possibly maybe for you not having a dad around. Was that part of maybe your thinking there that, hey, I'm not doing to my kids what I didn't have?
Well,
You think that's part
you
of
know,
it, Ronnie?
My father, I would do anything in the world to have him here now.
Yeah.
And seeing what I did, okay, beautiful kids, a beautiful wife, but I didn't. And that was 6 years that I had with him, and I wish I had it longer. And there's nights I'll walk outside and I'll look in the skies and just say, I just hope you're proud. Parents are very important to you. And, you know, my mother raised 2 boys during a time where, you know, she worked, put us through school. She yelled at us, she whipped us, but we never did anything that, you know, I told her the other day, I said, you know, my mother's been right about everything that has happened in my life. When it comes to dating or doing anything, she's always told me, she goes, you know, I'll always be your mother. and she was 100% right all the time, because who do we go back to?
Yes.
But, you know, she was my mother and my father.
Wow. Well, Ronnie, I can tell you this. If your dad was here today, there's not a question in my mind. He would tell you he's proud of you. But even more importantly, our God, our Lord, is saying, I'm proud of you, Ronnie.
Yeah.
And he's proud of you because of your relationship with him and all the things that you've done. So never wonder if you've got a proud father up there, because you absolutely do. And so let's get to some fun questions. We're going to do a quick little lightning round here. So who are 3 people, living or dead, that you'd love to have dinner with tonight?
Okay, I know this is going to sound corny, but probably my mother and my father.
Yeah, it's not
Both
corny.
of them
That's great.
Passed away.
Yeah, that's great.
She saw the kids in a young state and never
Yes.
really saw them where they are now.
Yes.
She was the bread and butter of our family.
Yes. So what would you want to ask them if you had dinner tonight?
You know, I mean, how did I do? More than anything, how did I do? I'm not done yet, but how did I do?
Yes. Hey, and that's not an uncommon question. Every guy out there listening to this wants to know, am I doing okay?
Yeah.
Am I doing okay? Am I measuring up?
Yeah.
And as I previously said, we got a God that's saying, yeah, you do measure up because of the blood of Christ. But, yeah, we all want to know that. I mean, I'd love to have a conversation with my dad, who died at 57.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I have that thought all the time. How am I doing, Dad?
Yeah.
You know, am I doing okay? You know, and so that's the importance, and I know you do. And I try to tell my girls all the time, I'm proud of you. I love you. You're good at something, you know, and just reminding them over and over and over how proud, because we would never want something happens to us today, we'd never want our kids to think, man, am I doing okay?
And that's probably an area that I probably needed more in my life. They knew I loved them. Okay? They knew I loved both my girls.
Yeah.
Seeing your daughter get married, that was the toughest thing in the world.
Nothing like it, right?
They were placing bets if I was going to cry. And man, when she turned around in that dress, I just. But you know, you want and he's a Christian. He grew in Catholic faith, and he comes to church with us on Sundays.
Yeah.
He was baptized here. And you know, he's very involved. He's a Shriner. He's involved. He works at Beta, and he's with her. And I know that, you know, you want to find somebody that's going to marry your daughter that you really is going to take care of her.
Absolutely.
God bless it's him and not me. That's all I got to say. But you know, my oldest one is in Australia now, and she's engaged, and they're planning to elope. But you know, she's 21 hours away from here, and so thank the good Lord we have FaceTime.
Yes.
Because that's our communication.
Yes.
But
Yes.
you want them to be happy. And
Absolutely.
That's all that matters.
Absolutely. Well, I've walked two of my three down the aisle, and I'm telling you, when I saw that first look, I lost it both times. So don't feel bad about that.
No.
Okay, you're a sports guy. So who's your favorite athlete of all time?
Roger Staubach.
Roger Staubach. That's me and you have that in common. That was
Dallas
my hero
Cowboys.
growing up.
Yeah, and you know, when the franchise got changed over, I lost it.
Yes, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. That's my guy too. So,
Oh man, he was it.
yes, him and Drew Pearson and
yeah.
Tony Dorsett, the whole crew. You know,
That's Cowboys,
yeah.
man.
My dream was to be a Dallas Cowboy, but then I looked in the mirror one day and said, "I'm a 5'5", slow, slow kid." I'm like, I don't think I'll ever make it.
I never wanted to play, but I mean, and you know, I've been to one pro football game my entire life.
Yeah.
I went to a Saints game, and after seeing what that was all about, I said, I'll never walk back in there again.
Never do that. Never do that.
Nope.
Wow.
No.
Roger Staubach's a great one. I'd love to meet him one day. He'd be one of the ones I'd love to have
Amen
dinner
on
with.
that,
So, okay, what's your biggest fear, man? You're a big guy. You're strong. People look at you like you've got it all together. What's your biggest fear?
Failing. Failing. I'm not perfect, but I guess just being a failure at something. I work every day. I mean, I go to work at 3:30 in the morning. Really don't have to be there. I love what I do. I love the athletic club. I love the people more than anything else. I could sit out there and talk all day long to them, but just failing.
And that's a good motivator a lot of times, right?
It really is. You know, I'm not perfect, but I feel like when I took over as the general manager there, it was something I didn't know, and I had to be self-taught because COVID really, you know, there was a point in time where we didn't know if I was going to have a job because Chris decided they didn't want to have health clubs anymore, and then Louisiana College took it over, and you know, I do. It's as I get older, it's harder to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and be at work at 3:30, but as I make that door opens, it's a totally different thing. Totally different thing.
Wow. Well, that's a great motivator. Fear, failure, great motivator. Can also become dangerous, you know, if we're focusing on that, and I have to remind myself of that. But I'm very similar to that, Ronnie, right there with you. Okay, so there's many men, watching this, listening to this, and, some of them maybe not their closest walk with the Lord right now. Maybe they've had failures in the past. Maybe they're going through something right now. So the name of this podcast is Finish Strong. Both of us, I know, are that's our goal, is we want to finish this life strong. We want to finish strong in our faith, strong with our family. So what would you say to the guy out there right now that maybe he's kind of wavering on his faith a little bit, maybe he's not walking as strong as he could? Give him kind of a locker room talk of, hey, how do you finish strong?
Well, the first thing is don't be scared. I mean, probably the greatest friend, the greatest person in your life is going to be God. I always said it's God family. Just find that person that's going to give you the branch, okay, to bring you into the church. Yes. Calvary might not be the church for you, but you got to find a church that's going to feed you, and it's going to feed you with what's coming off that from the pastor. I don't think there's ever been a service that I haven't been a part of where something during that sermon has talked to me and makes more sense. This past weekend talking about God, He is the one Almighty. And, we got to understand that. But don't be ashamed. You could be a sinner and walk in that church and walk out as a clean person. And it's more faith in making that right step.
Absolutely. Well, and that's evident in your life, Ronnie. I mean, just hearing your story. From a Jewish kid that showed up in Central Louisiana to a man that's been involved in Calvary, a Baptist church, for the past 32 years. Your impact on Central Louisiana through St. Jude, through your clients that you service, and most importantly through your family. And you're an example of that. And man, I count you as a friend. It makes me want to spend more time with you together. We got to make more time together. But man, Ronnie, thank you for being here. Thank you for your friendship all these years. But most importantly, just thank you for the man you are. So,
Appreciate it. Enjoyed it.
love you, brother.
Thank you.
So in 2 Timothy 4:7, the Apostle Paul is in prison. He's facing his impending death, and he says these words as a final reflection on his life and ministry. I have fought the good fight. I've finished the race, and I've remained faithful. So needless to say, Paul's life didn't start out strong. Persecuting and killing Christians isn't exactly the blueprint that God has for a man's life. But God had other plans. He said, I want that man. So Paul switched jerseys and made it his life's mission to spread the gospel no matter the circumstances. He made the decision that he would never give up, that he would never back down, and he made the decision that he would finish strong. So as you just heard from Ronnie, life's not easy, but if you're a follower of Jesus, God has said the same thing about you. I want that man. So how will you respond to that? The purpose of this podcast is not to give you another to-do list or to heap guilt or shame on you from how you started or where you've been. The purpose of this podcast is to inspire you to action by hearing how godly men like Ronnie don't just make lofty goals, they make commitments. Because I believe that commitments are greater than goals. Finish strong is a daily decision that requires a daily commitment. It's not how you start, it's how you finish.